When we speak about international relations, it is easy to make some false assumptions. It is easy to assume that states are rational actors responding to external forces. This is an intuitive view and a very popular view. The reality is that internal domestic political factors play a major role in foreign policy. This should never be forgotten. Most foreign policy decisions have a domestic basis to them. A leader starts a war not to conquer new territory, but to cement their own position. Wars can even become symbolic political operations that attempt to communicate a leader's supposed virtues to the population. The war creates unity, gives people a focus, and brings them in line behind the leader. This is an example of some common domestic motivations. Internal motivations. These motivations can be more personal. Prolonging a war to save one politician's skin from domestic opposition. Drawing out a war to distract from intense domestic criticism. Just look at Benjamin Netanyahu. Starting a war to show the population that one is a strong leader. Starting a war to give the people a sense of justice. Starting a war as a part of an electoral calculation. Starting a war so that people think something is being done about a serious security issue. This undoubtedly played a role in motivating Bush to invade Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course, there is the issue of corruption. Rich elites trying to start a war, to feed the military-industrial complex, to acquire resources. These things are relatively well known. There are also more personal domestic motivations. A ruler's desire to have prestige, to create a legacy, to have a place in the history books. Perhaps this explains Putin's blatantly irrational invasion of Ukraine. Perhaps he wants the history books to regard him as a great statesman and a conqueror. It is impossible to say, but we can say for certain that domestic issues are at the heart of international politics. We should never treat international politics and domestic politics as two entirely separate categories. You cannot understand one without understanding the other. Politics does not begin in the international realm, and politics does not end at the international realm. Everything is closely interconnected. You cannot understand one thing without understanding the other. We should always remember this. We should never make the mistake of viewing states as simple rational actors engaging with other states. If we make that assumption, we will fail to understand international politics. We will make false assumptions and come to faulty conclusions. We must accept the complexity of international politics. States are not rational actors interacting with external forces. States are driven largely by incredibly complex internal dynamics. Understanding domestic politics can be the key to understanding international relations. This may sound obvious, but many people don't seem to recognize this reality. They view states as simple rational actors. Of course, the reality is that states are anything but. They are defined by incredibly complex domestic challenges and motivations. If we are ever going to understand international relations, we must understand this. And most importantly, we must not forget it. Simplistic views are appealing, but they are deeply misleading. They obscure half of the picture.